Yeah, very good. Thanks for the intro, Jim. And I want to go ahead and start off. I've got some questions, and there's some general questions I've seen online, and then also in there's been recently an IES report, the Illuminating Engineering Society, put out a report in April to answer some of those questions. But I wanted to field some of the questions I've been hearing and just talk through some of the basics, and then we'll get to the audience and see what questions they have. So one of the first things we talk about UV lighting, um, and we have from a basic perspective, UVA, UVB, and UVC lighting are all
spectrum. There are some technologies known to be bactericidal specifically, so they're going to affect those bacteria pathogens. Um, so that's really the focus for most of the products that are out there today.
got you. And speaking of those three, there's a lot of things that I've read even recently, a blog post and all that have some I think contradictions or some are more specific than others. But as far as the actual safety, I know UL put on a webinar yesterday. I heard some of that as far as the safety of UVC, but as far as UVA, B, and C, how safe are these for human occupancy when used in a facility?
So I would say in general, no UV is really confirmed to be safe for human occupancy. Limited doses of certain UV will not be as harmful, but in general, it's not recommended for any human to be in the space when there's exposed UV light.
Okay. Because I know that the one probably I've heard the most is UVA, is potentially has the ability for someone to be in the room for like 8 hours at a time or something like that. So what have you heard the same things, or what's I mean I guess what's different about that and what's actually been tested?
So I think in general, there's again limited dosages are fine. So going out into the sun, for all of us right now, we would be exposed to UVB and UVA. So limited dosages are fine, but it's really how do you define that when you bring that into the space, right? And can you
Right.
say 8 hours, but then what happens when I walk outside of that building after sitting underneath the light for 8 hours? So really monitoring that exact dosage is really hard.
Right.
So that's where we just believe that UVA has been shown to cause skin cancer.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to take an unnecessary risk in that sense.
Got you. Awesome. And then so are there any of the between UVC, B, and A? Obviously, the big topic right now that we're going through is COVID-19 and the virus that causes COVID-19. So, are there any of these that are effective or shown to be effective on the virus that causes COVID?
Yeah, so the only studies that I think that are actually been completed in the entire world that are public. So
Right.
Seoul Semiconductor actually did do a study against the inactivation of COVID-19 specifically in Korea. They actually used UVC LEDs to show this. I don't believe all of the information on that test is public, but what is public is that they were able to get it to a 99.9% reduction rate in about 30 seconds.
Okay.
Um, the indication is it's probably from a very close distance to do that with LEDs, but I don't believe that information was public. But so there is information on that, and then it is known that UVC specifically will inactivate viruses, and so there's a pretty high confidence from everybody's side that UVC is going to be. Make up about 3% of the light that hits the Earth.
Got you.
UVC, however, is mostly absorbed by our atmosphere or reflected off the atmosphere, so it doesn't make it through. So most
Okay.
sources for UVC are going to be artificial sources.
Okay. And what about far UVC? Something I've been hearing about lately, that there's some breakthroughs and some testing as far as how far UVC there is some potential for it to have occupancy while these treatments or these lights are on. Can you explain or tell us about any of that?
Yeah, so we think far UVC is going to be extremely exciting. There's some really high-level experts that have been studying it for 5-6 years at least. Columbia University has done a lot of studies out of it. Dr. Brenner. So there's some good studies there. There's companies that are investing a lot of money into it. Ushio being one of those companies. So we think it's really exciting. But I think it's important to really note that it's never really been tested on humans. It's never been tested on our skin or our retinas.
Right.
None of this, at least if it hasn't been very public information.
Right.
So I think, looking at what the IES report said that was released about a week and a half ago is important. So I'm actually going to read from that report, where
Okay.
it literally says far UVC lamps that emit around 222 nanometers pose a hazard to the cornea, and recent studies have been inconsistent regarding whether the far UVC lamps pose a significant skin hazard. So what we really think is that this technology is extremely interesting. If it is proven to be safe, we will 100% be implementing this in the future. We think humans will be using this more often, but definitely more data is needed to know whether it's safe. OSHA, the FDA, EPA probably all need to weigh in there.
Okay. Great. And in that IES report, I noticed one of the words they used to call UVC was germicidal UV. Is that just a term that's interchangeable with UVC disinfectant lighting? Is it the same thing?
So I don't know exactly how to answer that question. I will say, if it's germicidal, it's going to be effective against all the pathogens that we're mostly concerned about. Antimicrobial might be the other term that's used.
Right.
Bactericidal would be the term that I used for, again, the UVA technologies or the visible light technologies. So really just that effect against bacteria specifically.
Okay. And what type of, so we talked about safety in UVC lighting. What are the risks with UVC lighting, with being in the same room with, let's say, a downward UVC light, something that can penetrate the skin or come in contact with the eyes? What kind of risk are there? Do you know of?
Yeah, so in general, again, we don't think it's safe for any human to be in the space when there's a UVC or UVB or UVA light in the space. Really to get that high disinfection level that you want on the surfaces in the air that come out of UVC fixtures or tools in general, we want to make sure that there's safety protocols in place where those fixtures are going to turn off when somebody comes into the space. Those designs, whatever that type of device is, it's going to turn off when somebody comes into the space. It's very important.
Okay, so for example, and we'll talk about it in a minute, healthcare facilities. I know there's been a lot of use with these solutions in healthcare. But what you're saying is, if a room is unoccupied, it is safe to treat the room, and then if there is someone who comes into the room, there's a safety mechanism that shuts the unit off, so that there's no hazard there. Is that correct?
Yeah, as long as the fixture is designed like it should be, right? That's what's going to happen. So most of the reputable companies out there, if they are using any type of UV lighting, they are going to turn their fixtures off in some respect when somebody comes into the space.
Okay, and then talk to us about some of the applications. So we talked about healthcare. How has UVC lighting, disinfectant lighting, been used in healthcare, and what's going on in the industry today in the middle of this crisis?
Yeah, so I'd say prior to this, right, you had large medical devices. Sometimes they're called robots. Sometimes they're called push carts, UV robots, UV push carts. The majority of them are not very robotic. They're roll them into a room and then they're going to disinfect that space. They're highly effective, very expensive devices typically. And so those devices have been used probably for upwards of 10 years. in a lot of these
Okay.
spaces. You can even look back in history, though. UV was used pretty extensively in the 1940s and 50s
Right.
when they were trying to combat TB specifically.
Okay.
So it's been used in healthcare for a long time. Military applications has used it for a long period of time. But really, what we're starting to see now is really that need, that desire to get it into more common spaces, commercial industrial facilities across the
Right.
United States, across Canada, across the world,
Okay.
so that we can have a more disinfected space when we're all in there every single day.
Right. And from what I understand, again, just through reading, there have been some UVA lighting applications that do an okay job or have been tested to do a good job as far as sterilization. I think I've seen some of that, but with UVC, correct me if I'm wrong, it covers bacteria and it covers virus and bacteria. So if you treat with UVC, you kind of cover all the bases.
Yeah, it's
Is
just
that
it. Yeah, it's a stronger light in general, right? The energy that's
okay?
built up is stronger, so you're going to have more effectiveness. You're going to have a faster effect on the
Okay.
space versus a UVA. And we still think there is a benefit to having a broad spectrum of UV. So
Okay.
there's a benefit to UVC in every single wavelength within that UVC range and every single wavelength within that UVB range. We think
Okay.
there's a really strong correlation to faster and more effective disinfection that way.
Okay. And do some of the lighting applications? So let's talk about some of the lighting applications. Are there some with that are in those different spectrums? Like how does that work? I've heard of like air handler, UVC, disinfectant treatment or lighting that is in an air handler. Because obviously with airborne pathogens, the air is a concern. So what are some of the applications that UVC is present in today?
So before today, when I say today, I mean the past 10 years, right? It was
Hmm.
primarily used, again, in some of these healthcare applications. It's been used for UV light, has just been used for curing applications. It's been used
Right.
for disinfection for years. But
Okay.
air handlers for about the past 30 years, there's been all types of UV systems that have been out there for either the air handler itself, or there's
Okay.
things that are actually in duct UV disinfection systems that are out there.
Okay.
Um, I would tell you in general, disinfecting the air with UV, unless you have a very strong light source, is going to be pretty
Hmm.
tough,
Yeah.
especially in a fast moving situation. You
Hmm.
need a pretty extensive system in a fast moving air or fast moving water. So, water disinfection has been used for years as well.
Okay.
Um, so, you need a lot of UV, you need a lot of energy to disinfect that water that's moving, that air that's moving too quickly.
Gotcha.
And those systems are sort of hard to find. The most important in terms of or air handling disinfection is the
Hmm.
cooling coils themselves. So
Okay.
keeping those coils disinfected keeps those systems more efficient, and
Yeah.
therefore you're not using as much energy, but at the same time you're able to let that airflow be a little bit more clean as well.
Okay.
In terms of when things are going through those coils, there's not mold and fungal buildup that are on those
Right.
coils.
Got it. Okay. Um, those were some of the high level questions that we've had. I did have something that came up here the last couple of days. There were I've seen these, and again, I'm not going to ask you to speak to this as a product expert, but it just if you know anything about it, I've seen some of these inexpensive UV wands that are on Amazon or whatever. Have you heard of these? Is this something that's in the consumer market? Is it something that's effective? What have you heard, or what do you know about these wands?
So we just think in general, and you can lean on that IES report again that came
Yeah.
out about 2 weeks ago. It's a really thorough report. So if anybody
Right.
on the call hasn't read that report, there's some really good information in there. But in
Yeah.
general, most of the products that are coming out of either Asia or maybe some things are being thrown together here right now. A lot of these
Right.
companies have gotten into the UV business over the past 6 weeks, and
Yeah.
it's a lot of let's just put a germicidal lamp into this fixture or into this device and let's sell it.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot of safety risk there. There's a lot
Yeah.
of false hope about what it's doing.
Okay.
If you don't have hard data from an independent third party lab that's
Right.
EPA or FDA regulated, then it's really hard to say what those are going to do.
Yeah.
The wands, for instance, you need to hold that wand in a perfectly still fashion over whatever you're trying to disinfect for a long period of time. So 30, 45 seconds to actually get effective rates. You can't just, wave it across the door handle. It's not going to do anything at that point.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Let's go to the chat. If anybody has any questions, we've got the chat and we've got the Q&A open on the webinar side, and then also on Facebook and YouTube. Feel free to jump in there and ask any questions that you have for Jim. We do have speaking of the IES report, we've got a copy of that on our at FSG. If you go to fsgi.com, that orange bar at the top, and then there's a UV lighting solutions page. In that page, there are a lot of resources, white papers, and that IES report is in there. We'll also copy and paste that report into the show notes here in YouTube and in Facebook as well. And we'll most likely include it, to the participants who are here in the Zoom webinar if you guys want it. We are recording, this conversation. This will most likely not be the last conversation. This has been a hot topic. Will continue to be a hot topic, and I know that. Again, Jim, as you said, the UV technology has been around for a long time, so it's not new. But obviously, there's a big reason to want to look into it now, as a lot of businesses are preparing to reopen, and as businesses are trying to take those steps that they need to take, there are a lot of solutions, and UV lighting being one of them. That businesses are looking at, and it's just been going to continue to be a hot topic, I think, for a while. We have something in the Q&A, so I don't know if you want to grab that one.
Yeah, what's the difference between the technology and standard UV lighting technology? So I think if I understand the question correctly, really it's what has changed, right? So what's happened over the past 10 years that's made it more effective?
Right.
I think in general, a pulse xenon light source, they've been around since the 1960s. There's nothing that's dramatically new there, but I think the use of them for disinfection has changed pretty dramatically. So our partner Violet Defense, really came up with a very unique way of getting high intensity ultraviolet light out into the space specifically. And I think that along with some of the other technologies that are out there in the pulse xenon light source world have really helped take this technology to another level. I also think the passage of the ACA, Obamacare, as it's called, that has really put in renewed effort or focus on infection rates in hospitals over the last 10 years to where they're actually penalized if their infection rates are too high. That penalty comes in the form of potentially a 1% non-payment of their Medicare and Medicaid payments. So that's millions of dollars to a lot of healthcare facilities. And so that's really driven technology into being able to figure out how to reduce these infection rates. And there's been tens of millions of dollars into research on really showing using ultraviolet light in a healthcare setting not only kills germs. We have known for a long time that it kills germs, but now we also know that it helps to reduce infection rates when used in conjunction with typical cleaning methods at the same time.
Yep. Very good. So let me ask you, Jim, I appreciate you coming on, and one of the things, and we'll look at the chat and the Q&A, and if we have other questions, we'll answer those. But I do appreciate you coming on, and one of the things that we've been trying to do at FSG is really to be positioned as a trusted advisor, where we are product agnostic, so we are always looking for the right solution for business, not just trying to sell a product. But I appreciate you guys coming on as an expert in the industry and really addressing these questions and just being helpful to so many people that there's so much confusion and there's so many questions out there. And it's refreshing these days to be able to get on these webinars and learn so much, about different industries and different solutions right now.
Yeah, I think in general, my goal with this today was honestly was to take a shower for once in a change with this quarantine life that we're all living right now.
Yeah.
Actually put a collared shirt on, but also to just be helpful because we think that using some sort of additional UV disinfection methods or using more disinfection methods in general is important. So,
Right.
yes, we think we have a really great solution to do that, but we want to be helpful as well.
Right. I agree. I think you have another, possibly another question in there.
Yeah, so one of the questions that just came in is Puro producing product and are we ready to ship? And the answer is yes, we're shipping product every single day. I think every single UV company, and we've talked to others, right? How are your lead times going? Just other friends in the industry. And it's tough for everybody right now, right? So getting these components, they're sort of sacred components right now. So getting as many of them as we can to ship as many products as we can is important. And as cities are starting to ramp up, right? So people are starting talking about opening their places of work again. That's when we're starting to see the stress come from a lot of customers right now about, I need to get something to help me disinfect today. So we're seeing that. So we expect, yes, we're shipping product. I would say in general, we're 2 to 3 to 4 weeks out on product if an order was placed today. And then I do believe we'll have the ability to continue to ramp up over these next few weeks to hopefully support that extra push that's coming.
Excellent.
Another question about how do we get these into airlines for overnight sanitizing? So I can't agree more, right? So we need to disinfect these airlines a lot more if we can. I think they're all doing, mostly fumigation systems. On most of these airlines today, they're using some sort of fogging systems and things like that. We think UV 100% makes sense. If we could install it throughout the actual plane, right, and actually disinfect at least overnight, that would be much more disinfection than was happening 4 or 5 months ago. But I think, the airlines are hurting right now, and we understand that it's a challenge for them right now. So hopefully they'll get back into gear soon. And I think, disinfection is going to be one of the ways they instill some confidence into customers.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I know there was Bernie Erickson, who's in our Northeast division, has been doing a lot in the space right now. He's been producing some webinars and doing a lot of Q&As as well. One of the things that I noticed in his last webinar was there's a hotel, I think it may be a Westin down here in Texas, that started using I think an autonomous and a robotic UV system in their rooms. So I don't know how much of this is going on now or will be as we kind of move forward, but obviously a big need as well.
See, they even tricked you, Brian, with calling it a robot. There is a robotic device out there, and that's coming out of Europe. But that device, it's just a standard unit, but it's one of the most successful in the industry. They're a very good company, very expensive device, but very good company. And they're based out of Texas. And I'll tell you, we're selling product to hotels every day. We're talking to office buildings every day. We're talking to healthcare facilities every day. People that you never expected to be interested in ultraviolet light are very, very interested. We're talking to architects and engineers about designing this into buildings moving forward. So everybody is very much interested in what's going on right now in this space.
Yeah, that's one of the discussions we've had. We have some several different solutions kind of right now. I would call them pivot solutions. Just with everything that's going on to really just try to help facilities get back up to business. But, one of the discussions we had is, who's going to be the first one to rip all the sneeze guards out of the grocery store? Flu season's on the way. So this, I don't think is a temporary thing. I think that, like you just said, I think built into the infrastructure and built into new construction, we'll see a lot more of this, right?
Yes, absolutely. Especially the high touch areas, right? So everybody we're talking to in the grocery stores, it's about disinfection of shopping carts. It's about disinfection of the cash register areas, prepared food areas, bathrooms. So those are the areas that I think that these will be installed into moving forward on all new builds. And again, it's can we afford to, as a environment, as a community, can we go back into these grocery stores that are existing and add those as well right now.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't see any more questions. We're almost at 30 minutes, which is a great time, I think, for a discussion like this. I would like to, Jim, if somebody needs to reach out to you, we can put either a link in the notes, or if you want to tell them now how to get in touch with you, that would be great as well.
Yeah, so you can just go to purouv.com, and all of our contact information is on that website. Obviously, you can find me on LinkedIn. You said my name beautifully at the beginning, but it's Jim Colantoni,
Okay.
and you can just type in Puro, P-U-R-O, and I'm sure it'll come up. And so if you have any other questions or anything, happy to funnel it back through Brian and his team at FSG.
Yeah, excellent. And if anybody would like a recording, we did record this, and so we will make a quick edit, and we'll have this available for anybody who wants it. Just reach out to us, brian.robinson@fsgi.com, or you can just you can go through one of the social channels, comment, email us either way. But Jim, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it. We look forward to having you on again soon, and have a great day.
Thanks so much, Brian. Have a great day.
Thank you.